Here's the exercise to configure environment-specific settings. What we are going to do is we are creating some currently unused setting in one system, and then we're migrating it to yet another system. We're lucky because we have a Tomcat running and we have a Wildfly installation running. We're going to use the Tomcat installation to configure, and then we're exporting the setting and import it to the Wildfly installation. I have both of these installations ready. My Tomcat is in this browser on localhost 8081 and using a different host name, which is 127.0.0.1.90.90, is my Wildfly installation. They both look the same, so please make sure to look at whatever tab is active. I'm going to let you know where I am. Now, in order to start, we are starting on the Tomcat. This is Liferay Tomcat 1. We go to Control Panel, Configuration, and System Settings. And in these system settings, we find a lot of configuration that all ties into the OSGI configuration. Within these system settings, we will find a file storage area, which contains the advanced file system store. We are going to use it later, but right now we're only using it for a demo to just configure something and bring it over to another server. Now, this advanced file system store has a root directory. This is the directory where it is storing all of the data that is stored in the document library. And the exercise now tells you to take it and change it to content documents. Click Save, and before I click Save, you can see that this is the default configuration, the configuration that you saw before. And now that I'm clicking Save, you will see, first of all, we don't have the default marker, naturally, because this is no longer the default. And we have this little options box here. We can reset to the default values or we can export. And the exercise continues asking us to export, where we will get a quite funny file name. Let me see if I can show you the full file name. I actually can. So this is a long file name, and the file name is important. And we can save it. We will download it, and I have done so. Now, continuing with the exercise, we are first of all, prepare us for the later exercise because we're not needing this. So right now in Tomcat, I'm going to reset these default values. Notice if this system is in use while you are making this change, you might have some documents uploaded in the wrong directories. So this is good for a system which is used by a single user, namely you or me. In this demo installation, please do not change this value just in production when people are actually uploading content. That would be a way for corrupting your document storage. So please, please, please keep this in mind. This is an exercise that is not good for a production system. Now, my Tomcat is reset to these values. Now I'm looking at my Wildfly installation, and naturally my Wildfly installation is still on the default. It has nothing to do with the Tomcat installation. It happens to run on the same local machine, but it is a completely separate one. So no matter what I do to my Tomcat, it won't have any effect on my Wildfly installation. So if I'm going to the system settings here, and I go into file storage, I will see that there are still the default settings active. There's our default settings. Now the exercise tells us to copy the advanced file system store and then restart Liferay Wildfly. We don't actually need to restart. Let me go through this exercise in a slightly simpler fashion. I have my downloads directory where I have downloaded the file that I have just created, that I've just exported. So I can copy this file and I can paste it into our DevOps volumes Liferay Wildfly OSGI configs. So if you remember, our Docker file for Liferay Wildfly configured a specific volume so that it's available from the outside host for Liferay Wildfly. So very nice. This comes in handy by just checking these configs. I can paste this one file into the configs directory, and this is available to the running Docker machine, to the Liferay Wildfly instance. Now, once this is deployed, and it typically takes a few seconds, a very few seconds, I can go back to my file system storage interface here and just reload the page. You will see that it has changed, and it will have picked up the new configuration that we have just deployed through the directory. One thing more, let me just briefly show what we have pasted here. So this is the file. And when I'm opening this in the editor, you will see that this is the root dir and the content. This is exactly what we have configured. Now, once we have this active, we can go ahead, export it again, reset default values. However, you will now see a problematic thing. And I'm just wondering which way I'm going to demonstrate this. This is all based on the OSGI standards, on the file install of the underlying OSGI runtime. This file install component will pick up whatever it finds in configured directories, and one of the configured directories is OSGI configs. Now, if you delete this file again, it will have an effect on the underlying installation, so it will be back at the defaults. However, what I can also do is I can restore the default values here. And you will notice that restoring the default values here has no effect on the underlying directory. Let me hit refresh, and you see that the advanced file system store configuration, this file, still is here. And it still has this content, which means you have now successfully reset the advanced file system store configuration to the previous value. But let me assure you, without doing it now, because it takes a while, when I now restart my Liferay Wildfly installation, it will pick up the new file configuration again. But this is one of the things you need to be aware of when using OSGI configurations. Whenever you deploy something through the component named file install into the running system, which is through this mechanism, through OSGI configs, then you should also unconfigure or reconfigure it through OSGI configs as well. So what you can do in order to really get rid of this configuration is to delete the file from the underlying OSGI configs directory, and it won't, well, Liferay Wildfly won't pick up the configuration upon the next start. Now, I would like to invite you to try out a bit more, configure through the user interface, store in the OSGI configs folder, and reset the default values, restart the system, and validate the behavior that I just described is actually there. This will make you aware of the caveats of having two ways to configure. It's very convenient to configure through the user interface because you don't need to know any vocabulary, you don't need to know this value is actually configured with the name root dir, and how to write a proper string here, how to write a proper number there. Nothing of that is required for you, but if you configure through files, you can easily migrate all of these settings between different systems. So both have their advantages, both have their disadvantages. Your mileage may vary, but you should determine for yourself how you configure your running system.